Well, it's hard to believe that October is already almost over, and in this week's Climate Friday newsletter, we're going to talk about some of the milder feeling days that we have had, also the overall trend. What is happening to October weather? How is that impacting the fall colors? And what about that October rainfall, which has been very sparse this month? So far this October, we have felt 12 days in the 70s. Overall, quite a bit of balmy weather, and this last week, you have certainly felt those warmer days with a nice stretch in the 70s. This month, 12 or roughly a third of the days featuring high temperatures in the 70s. In fact, this last week we have felt 5 straight consecutive days all in the 70s, some of those flirting with the 80-degree mark within this last week. Here's a recap of some of the warm October temps that we have felt lately. It all started last Friday. We felt a high temperature of 74 degrees, which is well above average for this time of year. The weekend was just picture perfect with high temperatures bouncing up between 79 and 78 degrees. The work week started off mild as well, and we had a high temperature of 79 Monday and 78 degrees on Tuesday. That makes 5 in a row. We're in the mid to upper 70s. 5 consecutive days and a total of 12 this month. So it's been a warm October, at least lately, and that fits within the trend that atmospheric scientists have observed over the past decades in the Toledo area. In the last 10 years, the month of October has gotten over 2 degrees warmer in Toledo in northwest Ohio, and that trend is something that's reflected in the recent days that we have had. Overall, throughout the month of October, what is normal? A normal high temperature for October is 65 degrees, and given that we've had 12 days in the 70s, pretty easy to see that some of those warmer than normal days are becoming a little bit more commonplace. Now, of course, we've still had some extreme records many decades ago. Back in the 50s, October 4th of 1951, that'll go down as the hottest October day we have ever felt at Toledo Express Airport, at least 92 degrees. What an incredible hot day for the month of October. A look at the fall season and how it is changing. The month of October is getting warmer on average, but so are the rest of the fall months. September and October, each of those has risen 2.3 degrees in the last decade, and that is a trend that you may have noticed yourself. The month of November is a little bit less pronounced. It's still gotten warmer in recent years, but not quite as much. December, that is actually the month that has felt the biggest impacts of climate change. A 3-degree increase in the last decade, that is significant, but when you think that that change happened in only a 10-year time frame, imagine how much the weather and the temperatures can change over the course of 50 years or even a century. Time will tell if that uptick continues, but a 3.1 degree increase in the month of December, certainly notable, but all the fall months, pick your month, September, October, November, and December have all grown warmer in the last decade. Now, next week, we are going to see the return of some warmer conditions. Of course, the WTOL 11 weather team going to keep you updated on a trend that'll bring back milder than normal conditions for the start of November. And that uptick in warmth that we have seen in recent Novembers will be evident next week with temperatures hitting the 70-degree mark across much of the country's midsection in the Great Lakes region, and down south across the Gulf, they could feel temperatures in the 80s next week. Here is a look at the trend that'll bring on a milder start to November, and this fits within the framework of climate change and based on trends that we've seen in the recent years and the recent decades as well. Temperatures are likely to be 15 degrees above average by the end of next week, and that is why the thermometers keep rising and our averages keep getting higher and higher and higher year after year after year. Now, what about rainfall? We talked about temperatures. Rainfall is something that has been very much lacking this month. October of 2022, we've barely gotten half an inch of rainfall. Very dry weather is something that's growing more common due to climate change. Now, last October, of course, was an anomaly on the other side of the spectrum. We saw almost 7.5 inches of rainfall during that October. What an incredible year, and local farmers know that very well. It made the fall harvest a bit difficult. Last October, we got double what is normal in the rainfall department, 7.43 inches of rain, and compare that to this year, barely exceeding half an inch. Here's a look at some of the driest Octobers on record. Despite the dryness of this October, we're not going to go down as one of the top, but we could still end up in the top 10 to 15 when all is said and done. October of 2005, barely clocking in at 0.27 inches of rainfall. A little more than that in 64. In the late 1800s, we actually did have some weather data back then reflecting a little over 0.3 of an inch that October. 1872, we got a little over 0.3. 52 and 56 were also very very dry mid-century Octobers that also featured hotter conditions. Now, the month of October is one that, at least in the rainfall department, hasn't been affected by climate change quite as much. Of course, the temperatures, that is a very obvious sign of climate change, but in terms of the rainfall, we haven't really changed a whole lot. As a whole, fall is getting drier, but October is one month that has not fluctuated quite as much. So we're getting warmer, we're getting a little bit drier, and that warming trend is going to be evident into early November. Temperatures are going to surge to the 70s by later next week, and we're going to see another warm up. This is a pattern that we call a jet stream ridge, and that was the jet stream pattern that brought us a series of 5 consecutive days in the upper 70s. If you're not already subscribed to the Climate Friday newsletter, head to WTOL.com/email. You can get the latest information on climate change and how it impacts you, how the weather is changing, and also as we look ahead to that WTOL 11-10-day forecast. Then you can download the app and subscribe for next week's Climate Friday newsletter.